like to call the Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 meeting to order at 9:05 this morning. And thank you everyone for being here. It's pretty frosty out there, but it was definitely a glorious rain that we had, and hopefully that contributed to our reservoirs. So at this time, Melissa, will you please call the roll?
Okay, Director Balin.
Here.
Director Boatwright.
Here.
Director Kearns.
Here.
Director Murphy. She's absent today. Director Ringen.
Here.
Okay, 4 directors present, 1 absent.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Santa, Director, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so at this time, we would like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board related to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This need not be related to any item on the agenda. However, the board cannot act on an item unless it is noticed on the agenda. Persons speaking during the public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. So at this time, is there any member of the public that would like to address the board on items that are not on this agenda? I see none in our audience, and Corey, is there any in the virtual audience?
Not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Then that will conclude our public forum, and we will go to the consent calendar. Melissa, will you kindly read the items on the consent calendar?
Okay, item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of November 8th, 2022, and special board meeting of November 15th, 2022. Item number 2, approval of reimbursement claims for director's statement of meetings attended and/or travel expenses and claim summary for November 2022. Item number 3, consider adopting a subsequent resolution making findings in support of allowing remote meetings pursuant to AB 361.
Thank you. Is there any director at this time that would like to pull one or more of those items before we vote on them? Yes, Director Ringen. Anyone else? Okay. All right, we'll just hold off and you can go ahead.
Okay.
What items would you like
As
to pull?
usual, it's a claim summary that I would like to ask a few questions on.
You bet.
Okay, so with that, on page 1, I brought this up before, but I'm going to bring it up again. I'm sorry. This is just something that's stuck in my craw. I do not understand, and I wish we could get some sort of understanding of what this annual food allowance is. I don't have any idea how one person has $283 pair of boots, and another person has $69 boots. It just doesn't make good sense to me. First of all, that's a lot of money for boots, $283. I'd like some sort of, understanding of that.
I'll give it a shot and somebody can fill in the blanks for me. So it's part of our MOU with the laborers. I provide safety.
Right.
There's an allowance. I don't remember the $285 an allowance for boots and everything to go with your boots.
And it's every year.
Every year, once a year.
How do you wear out a set of?
Do you want? I just some do more than others. I don't know that 100% of the people renew their boots every year, but I do know some of the crews in the construction maintenance side wear them out. I actually had to tell a few years ago one of the who's now a superintendent said, "You're going to need some new boots." I said, well, they're coming up in July. I said, well, those aren't safe anymore. So it's an MOU. There's a $285 allowance. Some people go by the more expensive boots. Some people do it with less expensive boots. It's a matter of preference and comfort.
Okay, well, you know, having been in construction for 60 years and having to wear boots, I've never worn steel-toed boots, but I know that my boots would last me a long time, many years. And I wonder how many of these $285 things ends up in people's back pocket without buying boots. That's the thing that concerns me.
It's on a reimbursement. They don't get $285. They submit a receipt that indicates that they've purchased boots that meet the ASTM standards for safety.
Okay,
And so then they're reimbursed based on what they purchased.
okay, see, that's what I've been looking for. 'Cause
Okay.
it looked to me like it's just every year like that, and that didn't seem like a real good use of ratepayer money, so anyway, thank you for the explanation.
I'll tag in his background too. You know, this has been in place as long as TUD's been here. It's mainly a safety issue. It's mainly a union negotiated
No, I
item.
got that, I mean, I
And
totally understand it.
We track it. Our purchasing agent has a list. He tracks every single person, when they buy it, where they buy it. They can buy it on their own. They can go down to Downtown Shoes. We reimburse them after effect. Also, you notice the different amounts on here. We have widely differing job duties and responsibilities. So one of them might be a regulatory compliance person who's going around taking water samples and may only need boots once every 5 or 10 years or whatever, versus the one who's standing in the sewage every single day and, you know, required to wear different boots, so.
No, I get it, it just, Abby gave me the explanation that I was looking for, is that it's not just a handout. You buy the boots, you turn in the receipt, and then you get reimbursed. So that's great. Thank you. Another thing that I constantly keep talking about, also on page 1 is under Bank of America is we've got $3,784 and $674 for small tools for construction trucks.
So we're working on getting battery operated tools for all the vehicles, for all the field staff, for all the field crews. A lot of them are run off the air compressor. With us not able to be getting generators and air compressors and things like that, we're starting slowly to put the battery operated equipment on the vehicles.
Okay, so this is equipment, tools that has not been previously installed on the trucks, so.
Yeah, so you're gonna keep seeing that as, you know, obviously the budgets are getting close, but in the next few years, it's gonna keep going.
So it's a change out, you're changing
Yeah,
one technology.
electric air compressed tools to battery operated.
Okay, thank you for that. Then we have, this is another thing that I questioned, I don't know, a couple meetings ago. Castle Tire Disposal, LLC, another $3,200, well, actually almost $300 for those tires. Why is TUD ratepayers shouldering this whole expense when it should be partly the city and maybe the county? I don't know. It shouldn't just fall on the ratepayers' back, is what I'm trying to say.
Go ahead, George.
If you go back in time into the 70s, the area around the Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, I believe that's what this is for, correct? Was the city of Sonora landfill.
Right.
And they collected a bunch of tires.
Right.
And at some point in time, somebody decided that using that resource as the way they were looking at it to reinforce a dirt embankment on the emergency storage basin. And then it was subsequently, not only was it tire lined, stacked tires, it was earthen, covered.
Right.
Now that we're doing new construction there, that earthen berm has, been dismantled and the area changed as far as elevation in that storage basin. Now, this resource that was used 50 years ago, that was thought to be a good idea, has now come up as a hazardous materials disposal, basically. So it's one of those things where somebody thought it was a good idea way back when, and these are just tire, we're not actually in the business of tire recycling or getting charged. This is something that was on TUD property that we inherited way back.
So it is on TUD property, and that's why we got stuck.
That's why we're, shouldering the burden of, disposal at this point in time.
Okay, well, thanks for the explanation. Doesn't make me any happier, but,
And it also predates me, so I'm not gonna take credit for that idea. I just, I tried to give the engineers heads up, going, hey, you just start that berm, and guess what you're gonna find?
We had it noted in the plans, but we had no way to quantify how much. So yeah, this was the best we could do, and it is on city property now only because it was removed from TED property, placed on city property as a staging area so that the contractor could continue to do their work while we figured out how to dispose of them.
this is another one of those unfortunate situations. So anyway, thank you for the explanation. This is probably for either the GM or for you, Eric. Condor Earth, 2,200 and 12,000. I believe that's on page 1 also.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Director Ringer, you're referring, okay. So the 2,200 is our quarterly groundwater monitoring. The Director Boatright would know about. It's a requirement of our reclamation permit.
Okay.
And so that's something you'll see frequently, well, quarterly, as a matter of fact. And then the other condor entry there, the larger one, is the special inspections, as it says, for the construction of the regional plant. And those include anything from compaction, concrete testing. We've actually used our own in-house for welding, but there's a number of different inspections that they're performing for us.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Then, I believe this is also on page 1. Oh, no, I'm sorry, page 9. Gallery and Barton. Now, I know that they have not, Jesse Barton has not been involved with the PG&E thing, so there would have been a drop in his fees because of that. But I just thought I'd point out that it's been a long time since I've seen Gallery and Barton down at $6,500. So I think that there's something to be said here about how we're not, well, Mr. Patterson isn't here, so the price has dropped, which is really great. Another thing I want to point out, which every time I see this, I kind of makes me shake my head, but I guess it's because the crews and everybody have been so busy. But just as a reminder, on page 11, Hunt & Sons Incorporated, $35,000 for fuel. It's a lot of ratepayer money. So, but I guess we've got a lot of things going on too. Let's see, Hydro Design Incorporated on page 11, close to $5,000. Backflow prevention. What is that about?
So I'll field this one in here. This is related to our backflow device. Per our water rules, per safety and sanitation, we have a backflow prevention system in place. This is something that with the transitions of various staff has been assigned to various people over the years, and it's a compliance matter that has to be relayed every year. We have approximately 1,009 backflow devices in place right now that are required to be tested every year and pass inspection. In the past, it's been kind of on a voluntary basis, phone calls, emails, letters written to the customers. So once Lisa retired, she was the one doing it at that time. Emily and I researched available options to see what we could do about this to improve compliance and also to improve the efficiency of the program. And we identified this Hydro Corp. They've been in the business 40 years of doing this. We researched it, we went through demos, we got referrals, and so we went with them on this program. The basic software and program that they have is $495 a year. We went through, we provided it, they set up the system so both our staff can do it, as well as they are the ones who contract with an inspector and arrange the inspector, and then each time the inspector performs the inspection, he submits it to them, it's uploaded into our system, and then we receive a monthly bill for all the inspections done at $65 per inspection. So this is the first month we went through for the inspections. We pay that. These amounts are then put on the customer's account for the $65 annual fee, and they'll receive it on their annual bill. They were notified via a direct letter from TUD. There's a separate indicator on the TUD website, and it takes them to the actual program. So you'll be seeing this on a monthly basis. And what this represents is the actual inspection paid to HydroCore, and then we will turn around and collect it from the customers as their billing cycle comes up.
Okay, great, thank you for that, because now it makes sense, and then $65 a test, that seems pretty reasonable.
Well, HydroCorp's responsible for all of it. You know, they basically set up the parameters, they requested bids, they went through and analyzed and did that. We provide them the list of inspectors that we have certified in our area. And so they selected it, and again, this is first year trying it, but I think Emily would agree, we both feel this is a win-win, both for our customers as well as for us. And yeah, there's definitely gonna be a little bit of explaining to customers, some questions from the community, but we're working through those right now, and I think after a year, we're gonna be really caught up and in good shape with this.
Right, I mean, at $65 per inspection, that sounds pretty darn reasonable to me. I don't think you could get it done anywhere near that in the open market. You know?
And if there's any kind of repairs necessary, or if they fail or anything else, then it becomes a plumbing issue, and they can, you know, go to whoever they want to get that accomplished and done that. But like I said, it's something that we've always struggled with as far as keeping in compliance, reporting to the state, communicating with our customers, and just the time involved as well. So, so far, so good. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
If you don't mind, Director Reagan, question directly on that. Concern for the ratepayer though, is there a fallback? Can they pay that over the course of the next year? Or is that due and payable has to push somebody into a delinquent pay status?
Well, I hope it's not gonna push them into that. They've been required to do this all along, $65. So, you know, they get billed every 2 months. We're only gonna do it when their billing cycle comes due. So we get the list, whoever's due the first of this month will add to that. Then they have the normal time period to pay us. If someone were to reach out to us and say it wasn't, we're always open to payment plans and working with our customers. So.
Yeah, as long as there's, you know, a little bit of flexibility there, it sounds like a great way to handle making sure the water system's protected. So
I think this is definitely very positive, like I said, for both the customers and us. And we've always worked on the basis of we don't want people to go delinquent, we don't want to turn people off. So we're all constantly working with people to help them meet their obligations any way they can. But the backflow device, like I said, has always been there. It's always been a struggle. And, you know, this was the solution we identified and went to, and I really do think it's going to be outstanding. And since that, we've transitioned it. You know, Emily was a big help during that period, but now we've got April, our customer service supervisor, and she's the one directly communicating with the customers, with HydroCore, with our staff, because, you know, anytime we get a new connection, we have to determine, do they need a new backflow device, and how we get that set up. And then once we get it set up, it'll be added to the inspection for the next year. So it's gonna be a reoccurring thing, and like I said, we're working through the bugs, I think, but it's very positive and very cost efficient as well.
Okay,
Thank you for your.
Yeah, this,
Thank you.
just to be clear, this is not a new charge for the customer. This is just simply what we hope to be a better way of tracking it and making sure that it gets done when it's supposed to be done. And so that we're doing what we're supposed to do and making sure that we have operating backflow prevention devices on clients who have that issue, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Then also on page 11 is not inferior, I can't pronounce it, but construction management.
I hope they don't feel inferior.
$12,825 for Valley Vista inspections. What is going on there?
Yes, sir. So that is a developer-funded district contracted with Infera Construction Management to do all of the inspections for Valley Vista. We don't have, at the time, we didn't have an inspector. We've been recruiting to hire one. And given the workloads, it made sense to have the developer fund this. So the developer deposited, I want to say $40,000 with the district. And we hired this firm, and they have a representative out there in the field doing construction inspection on our behalf. They invoice us monthly, and we make sure we maintain about a $20,000 balance in the developer's account, so that we never run into a situation where we have an invoice from the inspection firm and don't have the funds already on hand to make payment.
All right, that's great. So it's just a pass-through.
Pass-through, exactly.
All right, super, thank you. Page 14, Marco Contreras, PPI Legal, $125,608. What in the heck is that?
Okay, who is that? Yes, so this payment is part of our capital program. Marco Contreras is the owner of Always Paving Incorporated, which is API, who did some paving work for the district. You could debate the quality of that work on Phoenix Lake Road. This is a partial payment and was advised by Jesse on how much we really could release. And so the rest of the contract balance is still in dispute, but that's what that is.
All right, great. Thank you for that, because the paving job is horrible.
We recognize that.
And so I'm glad to hear that this is something that's leading to the end of that mess. Excuse me. My last question is on page 15, and it's not a big amount, $668 for monthly rental. Pacific Mobile Structures, what are we renting?
That's the raw water office, the modular out back.
Oh, okay. All right, well, that's it for me. Thank you for clearing up those things.
All right, thank you, Director Ringen. Always instructive here. So with that, would you care, is there any comment from the public on those items for the consent calendar? And anybody in the virtual land? Okay, so I'll bring it back for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Second that motion.
Thank you. It's been motioned in. Melissa, do you have the names there? Okay. Good. Any further discussion? All right. We can just say we don't have to call for the vote anymore, right? Because we're all here. So, okay. So, I mean, I can call for the vote.
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Any objections? No? Motion carries 4-0. It's been so long since I had to say that. Okay, great. So that concludes our consent calendar, and we shall move to regular business. Melissa, will you please read the first item?
Okay, item number 4, public hearing to consider adoption of a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act for Zone 4 tank and pump station projects.
Question, do I open it up with okay, thank you. Okay. All right, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the adoption of a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act for Zone 4 tank and pump station project. Will staff please describe and summarize the Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility Improvements Project?
All right, well, thank you very much. Before I hand it over to Elizabeth and our environmental consultant who's on Zoom today, I'd like to recognize today, as a matter of fact, is Elizabeth's 1-year anniversary. She's made it the full 1 year here at the district. We are super happy to have her, and this particular project is her project. We handed this off to her probably her second day here at the district because the first day is usually consumed by orientation. And since that time, you know, we've acquired the land. She's overseen the survey of the land, geotechnical investigation of the land, coordination with PG&E. She's done design work, and before you today is the CEQA, consideration of adoption of the CEQA document, which would then pave the way for her to finalize design and hopefully be in construction on this project next year. So this just illustrates how these projects are multi-year efforts that require a lot of persistence, and Elizabeth has just done a fantastic job. So I'd like to pass it over to her.
Thank you. Hi. So I'm going to give a project overview and then I'll pass it over to our consultant, Marcus Lang from DUDEC, and he'll go through mitigation measures and then the circulation of the document. Okay, so this project includes the construction of the new 400,000 gallon water storage tank, the Zone 4 tank, and it'll be on a half-acre TUD owned parcel, which is that triangular parcel at the top there. It also involves the construction of a new constant pressure hydrodynamic pump station, which will replace the existing pump station at the Whiteford tank site. And the Whiteford tank is shown there with the current pump station. And construction of all on-site piping and then off-site interconnections to the existing distribution system. You can see it goes down Whiteford Drive along Live Oak Street and then interconnects on Sugar Pine Road. And demolition of the existing Whiteford tank would be scheduled after the new tank and pump station are brought online. The main purpose of the project is to replace the current Whiteford tank, which is shown here. And it's a 210,000 gallon steel bolted tank that was built by the Sugar Pine Water Company in the 1980s. It's in fair to poor condition, not up to TUD specifications. It's on a very small easement in close proximity to 3 houses. It's basically in multiple people's backyards. The new tank will replace the water storage capacity of the Whiteford tank, as well as the 125,000 gallon Zone 3 tank that we lost last year. The new pump station will have 2 pumps. The current one has 1 pump and 1 hydro tank. The new one will also have 2 hydro tanks for greater service reliability and redundancy. It will also have an automatic transfer switch, so operators won't have to drive up a generator every time the power goes out, which will also increase service reliability and save operator time. The new site is a lot more spacious. It's on TUD owned property. It's farther, the tank will be farther away from houses, and there will be room on site to drive all the way around the tank. It'll be up to, the new tank will be up to TUD specifications. It'll have a stairway, it'll have forced air ventilation. And the project also included the interconnection with New York Village Mutual Water Company, which will allow us to drain the tank for maintenance every 15 years. We currently cannot drain this tank without interrupting service. And that pretty much summarizes the project and the purpose of the project. So now I'll pass it off to Marcus, and Marcus, Eric will be controlling your slides here. So let us know if you need to change it.
Very good. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I don't know if people can see me. I turned on my camera. I don't know if that does anything, but it is on, and I'm looking at you, and I see you all in the room, and I've heard some interesting discussions this morning. So good morning, everyone. I'm Marcus Lang. I'm the project manager with DUDEC for the environmental compliance, preparing the CEQA document. And I worked with Elizabeth to prepare the CEQA document for this project. And congratulations, Elizabeth, on your 1-year anniversary. That's exciting. You've been great to work with. I'm going to just briefly go through the findings of the document this morning. So Eric, if I can have the next slide, please. I'll just start with a quick project overview, actually an overview of the study area, really, since Elizabeth already provided a great overview of the project itself. So this just shows the study area that was used for the CEQA document. It includes that half-acre TUD-owned property up at the north end of White Fir Drive on the upper right corner there. That's where that new water storage tank and the pump station would be constructed. And then the linear portion of the footprint is the off-site pipelines that would go in White Fir Drive, Live Oak Lane, and Sugar Pine Road. And then you have that central area, which is the existing White Fir tank and pump station, which is set to be removed in the near future. The overall study area is about 1.44 acres, and the overall actual ground disturbance would be actually less than a half an acre, about 0.4 acre within that footprint. So next slide, please. So the environmental document identified impacts within certain resource areas and identified mitigation measures for any of those potentially significant impacts that were identified. They included a mitigation measure under biological resources to require a nesting bird survey and impact avoidance, bat roost survey. Some of the trees on site could provide roosting habitat for bats, so there are avoidance measures to avoid any impacts to roosting bats, and particularly maternity roosts, if any are on site. Cultural resources, there is a required measure in the event that any unanticipated cultural resources are discovered during ground disturbance. There was a survey a survey was done on site, and it was negative for any resources, but there's always a potential that some resources could be discovered subsurface. An erosion control plan is required during construction for maintaining water quality and avoiding loss of topsoil and erosion on site. Under hazards and hazardous materials, there are spill prevention measures, just measures for general kind of upkeep of equipment to avoid leaks, and other measures to make sure that leaks don't get into a drainage or other waterway. And a fire prevention plan is also required. Next slide, please. Yeah, the site is within a very high fire hazard severity zone, which I'm sure you're all aware. So a fire hazard prevention plan is or some measures are required. Some additional mitigation measures are hydrology and water quality, pointing back to that erosion and sediment control plan. And under tribal cultural resources, additional protocol for any discovery of unanticipated cultural resources.
Marcus, real quick, on
Yeah,
that
sure.
tribal cultural, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I
No, no
wanted
worries.
to just point this out. We can't see you, by the way. You're up in the upper corner, so it's great. We do have
Hopefully,
some
the camera's pointing in the right direction here.
yeah, and we do have some folks here from our local tribe, and just wanted to make sure you when we get there, if you didn't cover it, AB 52, that we did reach out to them, and that goes in line with the unanticipated cultural resources. There wasn't any response regarding an interest, to visit the site or anything like that. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, Eric. And the document, the document determined that all impacts would be less than significant with mitigation incorporated. Next slide. As required under CEQA, the draft ISM&D was circulated for public review for 30 days from October 6th through November 5th. It was also submitted to the State Clearinghouse, which the State Clearinghouse will then circulate it to other potentially interested agencies. Notices were also sent to the adjacent property owners and posted to TUD's website. All requirements of CEQA for adequate notice. 3 comments were received. 2 were from neighbors in the immediate area of the tank and the pipelines, and 1 was received from Caltrans. Each requested additional project information. There were no comments received that were specific to the findings or analysis of the CEQA document, and no revisions were required to the initial study in response to those comments. Next slide. So the actions for the board to consider today, required by the board today to actually move forward with the project, include adopting the M&D, which states that the project will not have any significant adverse environmental impacts with implementation of the mitigation measures, and adopting the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, which is the plan for implementing mitigation measures, and it also assigns responsibility and timing for mitigation measures. It's a checklist of sorts. And that concludes what I have for you all, and I'll hand it back to Elizabeth, and I'm happy to do my best to answer any questions on the document or the process. Thank you.
Well, that's all we had to present and provide with you, so I think it goes on to the next part for questions.
Does the board directors have any questions? Yes, Director Rena.
I don't have any question about the mitigated negative declaration or CEQA, but I'm just, I've visited that White Fur tank and pump station numerous times, and this is an excellent project. I mean, it's great, but one thing that my question is on that new piece of property, is there going to be room for another tank for redundancy? Because even though we're going to have a nice brand new tank, it'll be good for a number of years. There's going to come a time when it's going to have to be serviced, and so we're going to need another tank in order to take that one offline and reline it or whatever. So, is there room for another tank on the property, and will it be plumbed ready for the second tank while during this original construction?
So no, there's no room for another tank. We decided it would be too expensive because we'd either have to bring in a lot of import soil, make a retaining wall, or move a power pole. And so that's why we did the interconnection with Miwok Village Mutual Water Company. So we have an agreement with them that when we need to drain the new tank for maintenance, they will provide service for a few months while we drain it, sandblast it, recoat it, so there won't be any interruption to service And we have that agreement in place.
Okay, great. I mean, I figured that you folks would have thought that out, but, you know, originally we were talking about having 2 tanks on that property, and somehow we got down to 1, so.
Before I ask for written comments, I just wanted to say congratulations for your 1 year here. And also, I noticed in this report that it gave a level of detail that is just exactly all through this project, from the slides of looking at the restrictions of the tank and giving the board enough information to see what was going on, to the board packet summary page, which actually lists, which is very helpful to me, to list the previous related actions. So if I wanted to go back to a previous meeting, I could go on Granicus and look at that and look at what we did. So I know it takes a little time to fill this out, but you listed, you know, December 2021, et cetera, and I really appreciate that as a director to make a decision on behalf of how we spend the money. So I want to commend you for the transparency, because part of this is building trust with the board so that we can make a decision that we can live with. So this was very thorough, and I also appreciate you guys going to Mutual and developing a partnership agreement. Again, I think for fire protection, anything else that happens up on that neck of the woods, we have already established some working relationships and cooperation. So I really appreciate that aspect of this. So this was a good project to follow along, and so that we could make a decision. So anyway, thank you, Elizabeth, on that. And with that, any other director? Yes, Director Curtis.
Yeah, I'd just like to say it's a good project. I like the looks of it here. Takes care of that Zone 3 tank issue that we had last year. And we're going to get a brand new tank that's going to be able to replace and then some with the total amount of storage there. So that's always good to see. And good job on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Can you talk just a little bit, maybe, if you're there, on the design, the type of plant, tank you plan on building?
Yes, so it'll be a steel welded tank, similar to the recent Cuesta Heights tank.
With the ventilation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the gooseneck vents and the forced air ventilation.
Great. The rafters are external?
External rafters, stairway.
Latest technology.
Will the storage be equal to the 2 tanks?
It'll be more than, so it's 210,000 for the white fur and then 125 for the Zone 3, and this one will be 400,000. So it'll be 65,000 gallons more storage.
Great. All right, Melissa, were there any written comments received?
Written comments?
Yeah, so we received 2 written, 1 phone call, and they're both questions about the project. The Caltrans one wanted to make sure we weren't gonna encroach on any of their facilities, and they called out a specific culvert, so we confirmed with them we wouldn't be disturbing that. And then another one was an email asking questions about the timeline of the project, access to, it was a resident near the tank, so access while the pipes are being constructed and hours of construction. And then the other one was a phone call asking about what the noise level would be, and he had already talked to some of the current neighbors to the current pump station and asked them about what kind of noise level they experience. And they were all general questions about the project, so.
Okay. And I have one more question too. Regarding mitigation measures that Marcus talked about. I know in that elevation, you know, there's spotted owl species plus what they prey on, which are the flying squirrels, and those are cavity nesters. Were there any special mitigation measures that we needed to pay attention to on this piece of ground?
The bird surveys, the pre-construction bird surveys, and then the other thing is the bats, are there gonna be bat surveys beforehand? I'm not sure if bat survey is the right technology, but a biologist will come out and look at the trees and see if they're trees that bats would like to nest in, and then we'll make sure to not fell the tree and we'll remove those specific trees a different way.
Okay.
Right.
Do you have anything to add, Marcus?
No, Elizabeth did a very good job responding to that. The pre-construction nesting bird surveys would address any potential, spotted owl impacts, or if they're present on site. And as Elizabeth described, the trees would be removed in pieces if the bat habitat assessment indicated that they are appropriate roosting habitat. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any members of audience wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Corey, anyone in
Not
the virtual? Okay, thank you. Then I will bring it back, and if there's no further discussion, I will call for a motion to adopt.
I'll make it.
President Baylor, we have to close the
Oh.
public hearing.
Thank you. You only gave it in like font 14. Okay, thank you for keeping me on track. Okay, so, all right, if there's nothing further to be presented relating to the adoption of the mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act for Zone 4 tank and pump station project, I hereby declare the public hearing to be closed and return the matter to the board for consideration of the recommended action. Go ahead, Director.
I'll make a motion for a resolution number
2822.
for Tuolumne Utilities District to approve the CEQA notice of determination declaring a mitigated negative declaration for the Zone 4 tank and pump station project.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
And okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All righty, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes 4-0. Thanks again. Yes.
Yeah, we appreciate the board's support moving this forward. So hopefully we'll see, a construction contract come before the board here in the next 6 months so we can get this tank built for next year. And then Marcus, this is the second time we've worked with you. It's been a pleasure. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marcus.
And absolute pleasure working with TUD again. It was a very efficient process with very clear direction from TUD staff. So appreciate working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment in the past, a lot of neighbors have had concerns about the view shed, to have a big tank there. But I can only imagine now a tank would be your best friend, with the facts of fire danger and, it's a different sort of, time right now where we're looking at how all the storage we can put this side of Lyons, particularly now. We don't know about the drought. So, I suspect that sometimes our relationship to these things change. Okay, with that, Melissa, will you please read the next item?
Okay,
Hold
item
on
number.
1 second. I need to recuse myself.
Oh, yes, you're right, Jim. Thank you. Director Kurtz needs to recuse himself for this item and for the following item as well. So, sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
Okay, item number 5, consider executing a construction contract with Plum Construction Inc. for the Tuolumne Utilities District Warehouse Steel Building Project.
Hi, good to see you guys. Gabrielle Vivate, I'm Associate Engineer here with the district. The item before you is for the construction of a new steel building I think the board memo says it best, so here it is. The district's current warehouse space is fully utilized. That's putting it lightly. It's hard to walk around out there, much less drive a forklift in. So as the district has ramped up its capital improvement program and maintenance program, it has become apparent that more warehouse space is needed. Additional warehouse space would mitigate present supply and chain issues that are causing project delays. The expansion will also enable the district to better respond to emergencies, purchase in bulk, and strategically time purchases to shield the ratepayers from ongoing effects of inflation. The fiscal impact here is that your board has already adopted this project and budgeted it in our CIP and operations budget for $334,750. It is listed in the CIP as a 40 by 60 building. We are asking your board to authorize the award of a contract for a 40 by 80 building because we got quotes on both and we see that the 40 by 80 is well within our budget and it'll also be a lot more practical and help us out for more space a lot more. So the amount to be awarded is $216,800 and here to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Gadiel. Are there any questions from the board on this project? I think it's pretty straightforward and I agree we need additional storage because our supply chains have been disrupted and having mutual aid agreements here and there, we can always help out our friends and neighbors if we have to with an inventory, a robust inventory. So, and also it keeps workers out of the hot sun in the summer and they can work in the shade, which is important as we move in and out of drought. So, okay, is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this? Corey, is there any member?
Not at the moment.
In the phone lines? Okay, thank you. Then if there's no further discussion, so what are we moving on? To execute a construction agreement. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for that.
Okay,
Second.
great, all right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Gadiel.
Thank you guys.
And Director Kearns will be, as I mentioned, recused himself for item number 6. So Melissa, will you please go ahead and read item number 6?
Okay, consider authorizing the general manager to submit a funding application for the Tulane recycled water project.
All right, well, I'll be brief. What is before the board is, as described, to consider whether or not it would like to authorize our general manager to submit a grant application. Before we get started, I just also want to acknowledge Cindy Schlenz, our engineering coordinator, started the same day as Elizabeth. And so this is also her 1-year anniversary. And one of her primary duties is to seek and apply for grants. And she also was heavily involved in compiling the capital improvement plan. And with her intimate knowledge of the CIP, she identified this project and this funding program as a potentially good fit. At this point, we would just be making application if the board authorized. And then if there was any funding provided, we would be coming back to the board for further discussion and board direction on whether or not to execute any funding agreements. So with that, I don't know if there's a lot more that needs to be said, but happy to answer questions and dive in as deep as you would like. The project, real briefly, is to extend a reclamation water line across TUD property to the property boundary with the Tulane Golf Course to provide them phased deliveries of reclaimed water as water is available to augment, supplement, or replace water they currently already use and pay for that is delivered down Sullivan Creek through Phoenix Lake. Happy to answer any other questions.
I'm just writing this down. Thank you, Eric. Any board director have any? Okay, I see both of you. Go ahead.
How much water is anticipated to be available out of the reclamation system as far as the recycling? What studies?
So
How's that been looked at?
our water balance, on most years, we're fully allocated. I think in recent history, when I say recent, just the last few years, there really hasn't been a lot of water. But because we're looking out 20 years, 40 years, we anticipate there will be water at some point in the future. As recent as 5 years ago in 2017, Quartz Reservoir did fill. It actually overfilled. We had to construct a sandbag berm at the spillway in order to prevent that water from leaving the reservoir. And we had to utilize temporary crews and rent equipment to irrigate that year to drain the reservoir back. So 5 years is not that far in the past. And so this is an agreement or a project that charts a course for the district to ensure we have the proper disposal available to us as the community may grow, as existing reclaimed users may or may not drop out of the system. And so those are the things that we're grappling with for the long term, not necessarily for next year. But this project is in our CIP. It's a few years out. And so if we were able to get a grant, it would offset money that we feel we would have to pay in the next few years.
In accordance with growth and all that though, and it gets into then if we not create a bottleneck by reducing the treatable volume in small regional wastewater treatment plant. Earbud in, hooked to my phone and just started ringing.
Was your question, did our great work by our collections crews not kind of counteract the need, reduce the amount of volume going through the plant and making it more difficult to satisfy reclamation demands? Is that?
That then goes to water availability in Quartz Reservoir because there's not the water coming into the collection system. But what I'm saying is we've done a huge amount of work to mitigate storm impacts to Quartz Reservoir, reduce the size of treatable water at the Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, but we're going to substantially increase the allocation for the 1-2 of putting water out of the reclamation system. So
it's a tension.
We're kind of a little out of order or going in multiple directions without,
Maybe I'm having a little tough time tracking line of questioning and reasoning, but in 2015, as you know, I became the operations manager for the district. I stepped into a situation where it was, under my estimation, that the collection system was severely neglected. I learned over time, a couple of years, that we had a horrible I&I situation at the district. The inflow to the plant was so great, so often that multiple times in the winter time, the crews have to go out to the treatment plant to address the I&I, just to shuffle water from here and there within the plant to keep the plant from overflowing. water over years started stacking up in courts, and this isn't the first time. In the 30+ years of the district, this has happened probably close to 12 times. So much water gets stacked up in courts. We got to go out there and sandbag to keep that 2-foot freeboard, and even at that, sometimes we've got less than 2 feet. We were a day or two away from writing a letter to the State Water Board that we're going to have to release water out of courts in 2017 or 18, whatever year that was. So, being who I am, I'm going to tackle this thing the way I think we should. If we instituted some massive improvements to our collection system, it's one way to mitigate the problem that we're having at the plant and at courts. We, prior to my arrival as the operations manager, Eric and his team and whoever else had done the reserve pool pumping at courts to increase the capacity to pump more water out of courts, to reduce the levels so we can survive the 1 in 100 year rainfall or something along those lines. So, as you might recall, I was at the podium in 2018 offering glasses of water. I promised you we weren't going to overflow and release water out of courts under my leadership. It just wasn't going to happen. We're going to do everything we can, which meant we spent massive amounts of money renting equipment, man hours, using the equipment out of Egan Ranch and at Gardella. I think we spent $40,000 in 1 year just in rental equipment alone. So what we're doing here is, and the general manager at that time, Tom Haglund, kept putting his finger in my chest. You need to have laser focused on what's going on here, Don. We cannot have this year in and year out. I want you to go buy land. I want you to do whatever you got to do to make sure we're not doing this again. I'm not writing this letter again to the board next year. Okay, so we have options. We can continue to work on the collection system as we contend. We can go out and buy land and become ranchers and cattlemen of some sort, or we can have this option that suddenly appeared itself. We have an option to, in times of need, to irrigate 100% reclamation water on extra land, and in times when we don't need to do that, maybe we can supplement it with some percentage of reclamation water and irrigate and raw water. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I'm very proud of the work we've done in the collection system to tighten that system up. It's probably got a little bit more work to do. I'm really proud of the work we're doing at the treatment plant right now. We secured funding $42 million to provide a state-of-the-art treatment plant. So I don't know, that's kind of where we're at. I don't know if I answered your question. That's what
It was actually 2015.
Was that
2015 up 2017?
2017, we sent a letter to the Division of Safety of Dams and told them we had needed a sandbag. We have the letter. I know it's a little confusing. I think 2015 we were right there on the drought side, but there were a few other instances. 2005, 2011, actually I think 2006 as well, where we were right at the spillway. I know we live in, and I think President Balin alluded to it, we live in a different time, in the sense that the climate seems to be changing, and we've got different perceptions of fire hazard and all of these things. And drought is one of these things that feels very common now. And yet, what I think we need to do with the reclamation system is plan for the future and plan for that 1 in 100 rainfall year, which we know that there's a lot of volatility in the climate. And to be honest, there will be years in the future where we get 50 inches of rainfall. It may not be that often, but it's those years where we're going to need the ability to empty that reservoir. And the current land inventory we have is inadequate to empty without spending money to rent equipment and deploy other labor in order to get that water out. This is an option available to the district to apply for a grant, which would save our ratepayers, potentially save our ratepayers money that's otherwise been committed in our CIP, and represents a great collaboration with the tribe. I think the other aspect here that isn't really being stated is we currently send a few 100 acre feet of water, surface water, very valuable resource to irrigated golf course. If over time, I'm not saying tomorrow, that could be replaced with reclaimed water. That's several hundred acre feet of surface water that could be allocated for other uses here at the district. And we aren't exactly rich in water rights or water storage. So that's the compelling argument, in my view, to proceed with the project, although totally recognizing there's a lot of tension in between what is supply and what is demand and how to manage that. And that isn't new. We've been dealing with that for quite some time in the system, and we'll continue that. But I think the communication is very good now with the ranching community, and we have a very good relationship with the tribe who's here today. And so that's why we're bringing this before the board. Cindy's recognized this as no guarantees we'll get the grant, but she's recognized this is a good opportunity for us to try to go after this grant.
Any further comments?
Director
Raquel?
Regan, I yield the floor to.
And we can always go back to you, just for the record, thank you, David. You probably know the most about this system over time since you managed it, so I really value your input on some of this too. So I just want to say, Director Regan, before I turn it over to you, is some of us were here in 2019, some of us were not, some of us were here when it was Mountain Springs, and some of us were not. Some of us were here dealing with the grand jury's questions on some of the earlier contractual obligations, and some of us were not. And that's why I think that some of the context and history of this project when it was Mountain Springs is actually germane to our discussion now. I recognize we are not voting on the contract, it's here, and but I do have concerns about making everyone whole, because we all live in this community together. And so with that, I will turn it over to Director Green, but please understand that I think some of our background stuff is germane to today.
So first thing I wanted to ask is, as far as I&I goes, has Plain Heart CSD gotten their act together? Because that was where a lot of it was coming from.
They're working on stuff. I know they have projects budgeted and going forward with improving their system.
Okay, great, because I know we spent a ton of money and time putting those seals on the manholes and so on. So that's good to hear, because that'll hopefully make a big difference, you know.
Plain Heart CSD just completed, I think within the last year or so, a sewer mainline project down around the golf course area that was contributing barely to I&I. I was kind of worried that might be the only thing that they're working on, but they're looking for some grants to continue to do that kind of work. But, you know, I am particularly, General Manager, still paying close attention to the influence of wastewater treatment plant. And you know, this last storm we had, yes, it peaked like a lot of them have, but not nearly like it did a few years ago when my wrists were out all night trying to shovel that water around. So.
Okay, well, at least it's progress.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right. I have several questions about the project, and I'll just say up front, I got grilled by several ratepayers that are very concerned about this project, and so the questions I'm going to ask are not my questions. These are ones that were given to me, and although I was involved in this from the time it came before the board originally, it kind of came out of nowhere. This was a Patterson Cough Rucker deal, and so with that being said, you know, it was just kind of on the agenda, and there it was. We had best discussion that we could have with just the limited time and information that we were given. So these questions, I want to make sure that the tribe knows that I really respect what they have accomplished and are accomplishing here in the county. So I don't want these questions to cause any concern or anything, but I have to present them so that they get explained and, because I got nailed out in the public by ratepayers. So, was the contract signed in 2019?
Yes.
It was. So the tenure is moving forward right now. We're like,
No, the contract states that from the initial delivery of water, there's a 10-year period. So the time clock starts upon first delivery of water.
well, hasn't that already occurred? I mean, there was 300 acre feet of water out Phoenix Lake. Wasn't that?
First delivery of reclaimed water, I should say.
Okay, so I was also grilled about whether or not the tribe was charged for that 300 acre feet of water.
Yes.
They were.
Okay, they have a ditch contract that comes out of Phoenix Lake and goes down Sullivan Creek. They pump it out to their facilities at the golf course and irrigate from it.
And if the charge is at what rate? I mean, you know, there's miners inch, there's
They're charged,
agriculture, there's.
they're charged by acre feet. They pay a base rate every month.
Okay,
It's just like a normal ditch contract. It's just
Okay.
large.
okay, great. Then it looks like to me, we're gonna be spending, and I'm assuming it's ratepayer money. If we don't get that grant, this is gonna come out of the ratepayers' funds. And $890,000 is what it rounded up. It looks like we're gonna be spending. Isn't that quite a bit for 5,800 foot pipeline? That sounds awfully expensive.
It is a budget level cost estimate with a lot of contingency built in. Yadiel, because we're a few years out in our CIP, it may seem like a lot, but we believe that that's, with what we know now, pretty close to what the cost would be.
Wow, I can guarantee you there's gonna be ratepayers that are not gonna be very happy about this, because I've already heard it. Then, yeah.
You know, on the cost, there's some extreme terrain involved with this pipeline, is my understanding of it too. Isn't there a canyon involved that would drive up the construction cost of this project?
Not so much. The route that we believe the best alignment for the pipeline is actually to come down and get on the ranch road. There's an existing ranch road that runs all the way out to where actually the district spent $1.4 million to actually buy land, the Betty West property, for a storage reservoir, for a reclaimed water storage reservoir that we really don't feel that we are going to need in the near term. This helps with that whole mix of disposing water and maximizing the use of storage in courts. I just say that on an aside, but the alignment, no, it's we feel like an HDPE pipeline in the ranch road could be done. There is a creek crossing that is on the responsibility, I should say, of the tribe.
So not only are the ratepayers gonna have to pay for installing the pipeline and so on, that's an uphill deal, as far as I remember. So they're gonna have to pay electricity to pump that water, reclaimed water up to the golf course?
Now, the tribes here, they could maybe answer the question, or my understanding is they currently do pay to pump water from Sullivan Creek up to the golf course ponds. In this case, water will come by pressure from our current regional plant. And I think we believe that there's enough pressure to actually take that water up to their ponds. There needs to be it's going to be close, but nevertheless, they currently are pumping. they may need to pump in the future, or there may be enough pressure to get that water all the way to them.
So what's gonna happen then, just to clear it up in my mind, this will be reclaimed water that will be, sidelined before it gets to course.
Correct.
All right, now it's starting to make some sense. So there's a very good chance that it will not have to be, electricity to pump.
We're hopeful.
Yeah, okay.
Chime in.
How's that possible with the current reclamation users above the control valve?
This is what we're talking about. It depends on the demands in our reclamation system. Tomorrow, no, we're fully allocated in the upper zone. 10 years from now, I don't know if we'll be fully allocated. We also have the ability, and Director Boatwright has used the pump below Quartz Reservoir to supplement flows into the upper zone to kind of manage some of the hydraulics there. That is another option that could be used, but again, that's not pumping only for the benefit of the tribe. That's an operational decision our crews would make that we've already implemented before. So I think to your question, we're hopeful there doesn't need to be any pumping, but if there was pumping required, it would be on the tribe's back. They currently already do pump. So I don't see it as a big difference in operation for them.
That goes back to a supply issue. Building a treatment plant that's smaller, it's gonna treat a smaller flow of water. We've improved our collection system. There's not the water. Going back to Director Ringen's question, will our ratepayers have to pay for water being pumped? We're pulling water out of Quartz Reservoir and pumping it up into the upper zone. We are paying for water being pumped.
Don't we currently do that? Have we done that since you were working here? Yes.
Can I assume that we did it in 2017 rather heavily? Since
Sure.
that's.
Our ratepayers pay for it at that time. Our treatment plant flow, building a smaller treatment plant, our intention is to have the current plant is rated at 2.6 million gallons a day. The new plant, our intention is to have a permit for 2.5. Current flows through that facility are on the neighborhood of 1.3, 1.4. So when average daily flow. So what we're building in is the ability to see growth in the community. And when I say growth, I don't necessarily mean new housing units. Crystal Falls, this board has talked at great lengths about what it would mean to get all of those people off septics. That may be 600 new connections. There's other areas in our community where Brentwood Park, for instance. So it doesn't necessarily mean growth in the sense of development, but we need to factor in that there will be some conversion of septics to sewer. And that's why we've built in some of that capacity. The reality is we don't know what flows are going to be.
The new Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, average daily flow is 2.5, or is that a peak flow?
No, that will be the average daily flow that we're hoping to get on our new permit. The peak hour is 10 MGD through the headworks, and the max day is 5 MGD. That's what the design is for the new plant.
It's my understanding that the average daily flow for that plant is smaller than that.
No, we can talk offline, but our approach to the permitting will be for 2.5, and Andy at Pace, their design would accommodate a 2.5 MGD flow at the loading, the BOD and TSS loading that they've factored in, which is higher than what we currently have. So they've even built in some factors of safety.
Okay, so the grand jury called us out on this back a couple of years ago in their report. So I just want to make sure that it's understood how this is all going to come down, because I was accused, if you want to use that word, of this is going to be a gift to the ratepayers' funds. And I don't know where or how this is going to play out after we vote on this, but I thought I'd throw it out there that this is a concern. And I didn't hear that just once, I heard it several times. So I think we need to be crystal clear as to how $890,000 of ratepayer funds is going to go out the door on a project that I hope that this grant opportunity is for real, because if we don't get that, it's going to be very costly for TUD's ratepayers, and I don't know, we're going to hear about it.
Can I respond in some manner if I can? I just want to address this concern that it's going to be a gift of ratepayer funds. If any funds were going to be expended on this project, it will come out of the wastewater revenue generated funds, not treated water. Correct? So that's where the funds would come from those ratepayers. Again, go back to the genesis of this. I had a different, 3 general managers ago pointing in my chest. You deal with this now. Go out and buy some land, do whatever you got to do, get this done. I suggest that might be as much or more expensive than this option, in my opinion. So I don't see this as being a gift of ratepayer funds. And if you have some people that would like to come and visit with me, call me on the phone, please have them call me so I can maybe better explain that. The other thing is this has been on our CIP ever since we initiated this contract. So it's not new that in some manner we're going to spend some money on this project, because again, I as the operations manager and another general point in my chest, that was my responsibility. That was what I was charged to do. Now, thankfully, Cindy found an opportunity to get us some grants. It'll save all of us some money with OPM, other people's money. And that's what we're hoping for.
Well, I'm hoping that that does come through, because that will ease the what I have to listen to. And then I think that's pretty much it as far as any questions or whatever. I just want to make sure that it's out there so that if there is something that comes up either in the newspaper or from the grand jury again or something like that, that, the real story's out there. So that's it for me.
Thank you. I have some questions also. So I get the genesis of this. We had a lot of I&I coming into our system. It could cause us a lot of money if Coors was, which we have experienced this, dumping, secondary water down the Woods Creek. Okay, that's that. Then we don't have that permit to handle that, and so finding other areas to dispose of this water makes sense. I get that. Same time, we have tightened up our I&I so that we are not receiving the water. So my concern here now is now we have an opportunity to create tertiary treated water. Is that correct? Okay. So in reading our agreement with the tribes, it speaks to recycled water. Okay, and also raw water. So my concern is when the times are tough, how do we make everyone whole? We have a substantial investment in the ranching community, and they have taken water when the I&I was just flowing in, and they beefed up their ways to get rid of it on their land, and they have really been, I think, a good partner to us. They currently take the recycled water, and my question is, who else has the reclaimed water infrastructure out there, such as like Rachel Vujovich and the Betty West? How much investment have we done on those properties down there to date?
There has been substantial, incentive contract is what it was called, where the public agency has went in and built a system on private land with an agreement for the land to be utilized for recycled water at a rate that would repay the cost of the system that was installed. I don't know what the current disposition of the contracts are. They've all been fulfilled. I'm not sure exactly how many acres that would have increased the amount of land under, recycled water irrigation. Thinking that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 to 50. Maybe.
Very well could be, and I don't have the exact data. I think your gut is probably the best guide we have at this point, but since I've been here in the 17 years, probably done 5 or 6 projects. Mrs. Vujovic is one where really not only do we not charge for the water, but the district did pay for the development of those systems. We did the design, and sometimes the installation was contracted out, at other times it was our own crews. We've done bore and jacks under the railroad tracks to get water to Gardella. We've done a number of improvements on Rosasco's property. We've done Betty West irrigation, Rachel Vujovic. We've done pump station at Larson's. We've done McCrae. We did some work on McCrae's property. I'm naming some of, so I think to your question, there's been a significant amount of investment to develop lands that the district doesn't own, but also doesn't have necessarily a long-term contract to ensure that those will, once they finish the incentive portion, which is use so much water to pay back our initial investment. Once that's over with, those landowners don't necessarily have to continue to accept reclaimed water. We do not have an easement. One of the benefits of our agreement with the tribe, quite honestly, is that it comes with an easement, which means that that land should always be available to use for irrigation, regardless. And that is not the case on the other lands that we have in our system.
And I totally agree with that. But looking at the current system and the original ranch land that was put under, contracts for using the recycled water, the reclamation system being built has a federal, state, and local project, combined. That time frame is past. Some of the contracts were 20 years, some of them were 40 years. And even the 40-year contracts have now expired. So when we're talking, going into the future, a 30-year contract is not, a forever guarantee. 30 years, fortunately as a human, it passes pretty doggone quick. So you two with the first year complete, looking forward to a long longevity, trust me. Enjoy the time, it will pass. It's to look to the future, in my mind, you're looking at 100 years. Won't even be here when the contract expires. We're gonna pass this on to generation and on to the next generation. That's the kind of thing that we should be, looking at. Certainly if we own the property, it goes into perpetuity where, we've always got that as an option. Water in the future. 50 years from now, will we still be conveying the waste from our houses, by use of water on a, water conveyance system? It could all, water's a pretty precious thing on this, where we're at.
If I may continue.
No,
Okay. Thank you, Eric, for that. I knew that we had infrastructure down there. I just wanted to hear it. Do we have contracts with those folks for disposal?
So I want to make this a short, easy answer. The answer is yes, most of them are expired and have not been renewed. The ones, the typical contract is the one that Director Boatwright explained, is an incentive contract where we install the system and there's a value placed on the water. I think it was about $75 an acre foot. And so it costs $7,500 to install an irrigation system, $75 a foot. You would have to use 100 acre feet and it would pay back the system. And so most of those have now been retired. There are a few other agreements that are non-specific to incentive, and they have terms that are like 20 years that David has also explained. And those also, with the exception of a few, have also expired. So we have a bit of a handshake arrangement here. We provide a good service and the ranchers have great value for the water and they continue to use them. But again, not knowing what 15, 20, 30 years out, what that's going to look like, this is why your staff's trying to lock in other options for us that may not be needed tomorrow, but may be needed 5 years from now even, or longer. We're just not sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, because we have made an investment. I think you answered that. We have made an investment. I think about a year ago, I called State Water Resources Control Board because a couple of GMs ago, or maybe last GM, was saying we have to have these easements. And so when I called State Water Resource Control Board, I said, is that the case? And they said, no, it is not the case. You do not need easements from the ranching community. Agreements. Okay, so if these agreements have lapsed, and we're talking people's livelihood here. We're talking about people that have been customers and have done us some great favors in disposing the water. And we're talking about also Tulalip being part of the tribe's livelihood as well. Okay, so my concern is to value water, of course, and value our customers. And if we need to renew agreements, because that west end is also protecting us from fire coming in from there. And don't tell me that that area cannot burn, because I remember it burning when I was a kid in the 50s. And a lot of those oak trees never came back down around the Rosasco area. So that land, keeping that green, if we have to evacuate and we could park cattle and everybody else's animals there, is important. As is green in that end of the, in the Tulalip end of the area for a safety zone. So I'm enlarging the discussion here, which is not on the table, but I am concerned about our community, and I'm also concerned about honoring contractually promises that we cannot deliver on. It looks like Tulalip has redundancy in the system. So that means we can get raw water to them through Phoenix. So they can be made whole. But I also see a whole new revenue in tertiary water. Okay, so what that means is we don't have to apply old yucky water with all those restrictions on it in the secondary process. We can now supply a higher quality of water to people. So that kind of is a game changer. So I think where it boils down to me is on the one hand, I commend us for being prepared. We don't know if we're going to get atmospheric rivers that are going to be stalled out in top of our county for 2 months. We do not know what that's going to look like, or major long-term drought like Egypt or something. So this is a real concern, but I do not want to abandon for whatever reasons, long-standing customers without giving them the opportunity to really weigh in for the long term as well. So is it possible to make everybody whole? I don't know, because I don't know what the weather's going to be. But I am very concerned that while I support this project, I want to make sure that it's only a partial fulfillment to our community and that we have an obligation to perhaps amend this reclaimed water now that we're looking at tertiary water as part of this, and make sure that we have a meeting that discusses this in totality so that we can look at where we made the investments, where we may need to park other water, we don't know, and where, if we need to sell the Betty West property, but look at this in terms of a whole picture, in addition to what we're able to now provide, even though we fixed the problem so well, we don't have extra water right now. So, you know, we know that nobody's date is gonna dry up, but I just want a larger conversation, and I would really like this to be on the agenda in the coming new year, with our ranching community, so that they have a measure of weigh-in as well for this. So, you know, I know you've sort of made this declination, well, we don't know what's gonna happen, and so therefore this gives us more security. But if we don't ask, we're just gonna say, well, we don't know. So I think we need to continue with our good working relationships with the ranchers and get contracts renewed wherever feasible, and then clean up this other area that we have invested infrastructure in and figure out what we're gonna do with that. So I would like this to go on our agenda for next year. Not this, what's on here, I'm not deferring this, but I think it's part of a larger discussion so that we can make sure everybody's whole and we're not giving false promises when we may not have the water. And I also I have one more question, and that is, when you say we say here, extending a reclaimed water pipeline, is that not new construction?
It's, maybe it's just vernacular, we're connecting to an existing pipeline and running a new pipeline over to the property boundary with the track.
So essentially, it's a mile of new construction.
Correct.
Okay, so that's really what we're dealing with, mile of new construction. Okay, so is there going to be archaeological surveys? Is there going to be biological surveys? Is there going to be an area corridor of potential effects?
Yes, there will.
Will that be included in, is that also included in this fee?
It's included in the grant scope, so it's an
Okay.
eligible grant expense for reimbursement. And yes, there would need to be field work done, absolutely. There are oak trees out there as well, and
Okay, so that's part of this. Okay. In case there is something in the way, then we can, there'll be cost for avoidance, there'll be, okay. All right, well, I think, thank you. You've been really helpful in answering my questions, and I think some of the, we're just making sure we're doing our due diligence all the way around. It's a very different mission than you guys, our mission. So just, I mean, duh, but you know, I'm just saying. Okay, so is there any other comments from the board?
I think, yeah, I'll reserve anything else until it's brought back for board discussion, after public comment.
Okay, all right, so, and Director Ringen, I'll open it up to public comment if you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so at this time, I'll open up the discussion to public comment. Yes, go ahead, please come up.
So my name is Daryl Tinkle. I'm the president of the Tuolumne Economic Development Authority with the tribe. So I understand that this is a topic that involves a lot of different sides and a lot of different people. On our end of what we're looking at, the whole purpose of us even potentially purchasing that golf course in that time was the potential opportunity for the tertiary water. We understand that water supply is based on if it's available. If this project was to happen, we understand that when it comes, we need to use it, and we would use it. We're willing and able to install the pipeline to run it underneath the creek, if that's the way we go, or over the creek. We can get the permit needed with, forgot the name of it, but the permit that is needed, we've already looked into. And we can achieve all that. We will cover the cost to get it from where you guys can bring it over to us. If we need to put in a different pump to accommodate that, we can do that. And as of right now, from my understanding, the way it works is we receive water from the Phoenix Lakes location. There's no meter at the golf course. So anywhere from Phoenix Lake all the way to the Tulalip property line, if anybody basically wants to steal that water or use that water, we pay for it. So, and from the months of October, November, and December, we're not supposed to be paying any fees. I went back and looked for the last 2 years worth of billing statements, and there were some months that seemed to be where we were paying in those months, October, November, and December. I would have to send it over to you guys and have you guys look at it in more detail, but it does appear to have been that way. The tribe wants to continue to work with the utilities district. We have many plans to grow. And this would just be one of those projects that would solidify a little bit more, knowing you guys are with us. We have no problem in meeting any needs that you guys would request. We could provide whatever it is that you guys need, but we essentially got into this whole program based on the premise of being able to potentially receive that tertiary water. And as you guys stated, a lot of the clients that you guys have don't even have contracts. We do have a contract. And I see the desire by the TUD board to reach out and solidify those contracts, but we currently already have one. So I feel like the priority would be to honor the people who do have a contract versus not. Also, what was being asked of today is for the grant to be sought after and to be pursued. It's not anything more than that. It's basically to get the ball rolling and to go in that direction. But yeah, I would just like to see that it's weighed heavily and very meticulously thought about the decision you guys are gonna make. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Any other member wish to address the board at this time?
Thank you. Kevin Day, past chair for Tuolumne. My chairperson let me speak here. I think Darrell is right and correct that we do have a contract with you and other people don't for whatever reason. And the tribe plans to honor that. We've always tried to honor our agreements with any entity that we worked with, whether it be the Forest Service, TUD, the county. I think if you talk to those folks, we've done that above and beyond. And you're right, Mr. Boat, right, that you got a lot of problem to worry about hundreds of years. We have to worry about thousands of years because we're not going anywhere. I promise you we will be here in thousands and thousands of years. We're just trying to do the right thing and follow the lead of TUD, trying to save the taxpayers' money. We're taxpayers also, so I get your ratepayers' concerns. But there are some ratepayers out there who support this, and if you'd like to hear from them, I'll make sure they call you. So you hear both sides. We're not trying to get rich off this. We're trying to sustain something for the community. We were asked to buy that place to help the community because a lot of the elders in this community, that's what they do. And so we're giving our best shot to try to make it work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Corey, is there any member
No, at the
the
moment.
virtual land? Okay, thank you. All right, so if there, and again, I want to say what we are doing today is to authorize the general manager to submit a funding application. That is why we're here. We've allowed the background discussion, but that is why we're here. So with that, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
a motion authorizing the general manager to submit a funding application for the Tulalip Recycled Water Project.
Okay,
Madam President, I'd like to make a competing motion, or competitive motion, to table this item to be brought back at another point in time when we may have larger than the quorum, the specific number of board members to meet the objective of a quorum for this board. And at the time of being brought back, I would like to see a report of, for the last 20 years, the number of years that we've been in excess of our contracts, our current recycled users, so that it is clear to the board where we're at as far as doing this. The reason for doing this would, there's still a substantial amount of questions in my mind, and I'll try and clarify my competitive motion in a minute, but we're utilizing water out of Phoenix Lake. We're utilizing the recycled water. And if we bring the tribe in, to the circle of reclaimed water users, if we were to have a supplemental water supply for Quartz Reservoir, and I have always said we need enough land that at maximum fill capacity of Quartz Reservoir, that by October 15th of each year during the end of the irrigation cycle, all of that water that is in Quartz is utilized, plus all of the water that is generated from April 15th to October 15th by the Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, that is in addition to what is stored, basically counting on water that's not there. So it's a total water balance. To bring in the tribe's property at the Tulalip Golf Course, it may make it perfectly balanced, but without a policy that covers supplemental water being put into Quartz Reservoir to bring it to a certain level every year, be it 1,500 acre feet of recycled wastewater and 100 acre feet of raw water being supplied down to make everything balanced, or a year that has 800 acre feet of recycled water and needs 800 acre feet of raw water, and all of the contracts and all of the current users are supplied. Now, it's sometimes debated that ranches will drop off. As time passes, going into perpetuity, 100 years, 1,000 years, forever into the future, we're not always here. So we pass on to the next generation. Well, the next generation, they may not want to irrigate. As we have ranch land that fulfills the incentive contracts, they may decide, hey, it was interesting, did it for 15 years, fulfilled my side of the contract, but I'm going to do something different. Won't need the water anymore. So they may drop off. But having a supplemental water supply that fills and makes everything whole down there, which we do not currently have, and the fact that we've tightened up the collection system, building a smaller wastewater treatment plant, going to tertiary treatment. Even the treatment process that the district has chosen for the new Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, that treatment plant will return a substantial amount more than the current treatment plant because of the aeration process that's being utilized. Now, the numbers may not change all that much because there's been some differential in effluent meters There's speculation on some other paths of the water as far as evaporation, percolation, you know, is there a loss or gain of water that way? But, you know, I'm not thinking I'm seeing a science-based item here, and where I'm at, if this goes forward and grant funding becomes available, TUD has a track record. This project will be done ASAP. It'll fast track, it'll go through outside engineering, contractor bidding process, could actually be a engineering build project. So anyway, like I said, I would make a competitive motion to table this item until we can gain a greater than required number of quorum and have a little bit more study and numbers done for this item to show both, you know, public, current ranchers, the tribe. And I am not against this project. It's great. But if we bring it into a piece where we don't have the ability to close the circle, i.e., we won't be able to irrigate with recycled water, you may see 5 acre-feet of water. It starts a timeline on a contract that, you know, my understanding, you'd still be paying for 295 acre-feet of water from the raw water side. But if it's all balanced, it becomes, you know, completion. I have been long-standing on my soapbox that, hey, you know, we need water available during dry years and during wet years. We need enough land that all goes out. And this project, it's not a bad one. I don't think we've got the foresight in this to keep our existing customers that have been here for 1976 to now, not fulfilling our obligation to them. So my motion would be to table this item.
Okay, and you also gave a reason that we have a board member that is absent and one that has to recuse himself. So what I'm hearing you say is we may not have the votes here with 3 of us, so that the prudent thing would be to table it to have this part of a larger discussion.
A larger discussion, and like I said, I'd like to see some more information as far as the total water balance in a fashion that, you know, right now, I don't know what the current level of Quartz Reservoir is. But I would project it not to, you know, come to a point that will fulfill our existing contracts.
Okay. I appreciate what you're saying. First of all, I don't have a problem with this project, okay? I think we need more redundancy in our system. It doesn't seem to me that the contract, which I believe in honoring also, every single contract, we are obligated. But this says recycled water. So upon hearing that your interest is in tertiary water, I don't know how, it seems to me that that's not mentioned in the contract. So I see that if we're going to really make this right and make this whole, that would need to be a part of this as well, since that's the direction that you all want to go, is to have the actual tertiary treated water. Go ahead.
Before we go too far down that path, there's certain obligations to the state requirements as far as type of public contact for recycled water. Secondary treated water has 0 public contact. The requirement to get water to the golf course would require tertiary treated water available anyway. For actual public contact, people walking through the irrigated right-of-ways on there, it requires it. So by regulation.
Okay,
It-
so,
It,
so
it
that,
may not be specifically spelled out in the contract,
but that's the implication. Got it, okay, all right, thank you. All right, so we have a motion. Go ahead.
I've got a question for GM Perkins or whoever. This agenda item is about trying to get funding for that project. It's not about the project itself. So with that being the case, if this were to get tabled, my question is how far is this gonna set us back for getting a grant?
The grant funding deadline for application is December 31st.
There you go.
I'm sorry, I did not hear that.
The deadline
grant
for
funding
the,
deadline is December 31st.
December 31st.
And also too, don't forget the tertiary treatment aspect of this is a year away. A year away, so the project, they might be able to start put the pipeline in prior to that time, but there'll be no tertiary water running through that pipeline till a year from now, when the new wastewater treatment plant is finally constructed.
Okay, so what we have is we have a motion to approve. I will second that motion. And if there's no further discussion, and then we will move, if we do not have a quorum, then we will move to your motion. Is that legal?
That's
Okay,
correct.
all right. So we have, and again, this is for,
No, that, I don't agree with that being legal.
It's correct, there's a quorum here. There is a quorum. We have a first and a second, and so then you'll vote.
But if I vote no,
Then we go on to your motion.
we go to your motion.
Director Ringen's motion was first, so we addressed that.
okay, I agree with that. But under the current quorum, a vote will, in that circumstance, be voted down. If there would be 2 yeses and 1 nay, that then eliminates this item.
Correct, then there is no need to table.
There is no tabling.
Correct, you're correct. Then there is no further
This-
action.
And I have also requested that this item go on the agenda for the beginning of the year.
I would request a special board meeting and, present the science behind this, which will actually open this up a little bit further. I really don't want to be in this position that I am currently in.
You can
President
extend.
Balin, I just feel like I gotta just step up here and just start talking. We're here to talk about a grant. Thankfully, we've allowed this discussion to go really wide, which is good.
This discussion came back to the board. He's out of order.
That be it may, I'm the general manager of this.
He is out of order, Madam President.
Well, I can call on him and then he is in order, so I will call on the general manager.
Thank you. All due respect. A couple things, we're here looking for grant monies, right? It's a big incentive for this district to go after grant monies, to protect our ratepayers. This project has been on the books since 2018, right? We've been under contract since 2018, so it's not new, right? So if we don't have the correct science, we've never had the correct science. I believe we have all the, well, I shouldn't say it that way. We can bring back all the information you want in January, February, however soon you want that. Geez, we just get in this quagmire. We just get in this quagmire, right? I think it's just a simple decision to apply for this grant or not. You don't have to accept the grant, right? Between now and, they offer us a grant, we can have a meeting and discuss this. But I'll just remind you, we're under contract. We're just under contract. And I don't mean to be, threatening or anything, but we're just under contract.
George, you go ahead.
General Manager Perkins bring up that we're under contract. Does the contract actually say that we will apply for grant funds for this project?
Do you hear that?
This
No,
is
it says that
funding.
it doesn't identify the funding source other than to say that it's the district's responsibility to construct the infrastructure to bring water to the property line.
Yeah. Throw this back into discussion. The wastewater committee actually asked for a supplemental water supply policy. And there's been zero action on that. It was months ago, and I want to say years ago, because I believe you were actually the interim GM at the time that was asked for. That is a piece of pie that is not in this plan. TUD, if we apply for the funds, and it's a great project, it will receive grant funding. I'd put a $50 bill on it, a US grant, that it will receive nearly 100% funding. It's a good deal, but it doesn't complete the pie, and I don't see the want to get the rest of the wheel completed. So what we're facing here is this application is potentially going down in defeat. And I don't want to shoot it that hard. Like I said, there's questions on the capacity of the system and the water balance, the current users being made whole, how much, goes this way or that way. And without identifying a source of supplemental water to the recycled water system.
How about this? I propose, if this is okay with you, we amend the motion for approval to include completing the pie. Would you be in agreement that, so in other words, that this moves forward on the condition that we move on identifying supplemental water. I mean, your words were to complete the pie for the sake of the whole county, that we're all in this together. But that we amend the motion to complete.
I think we would stretch bounds too far on what the agendized item is. Because the agendized item is to move forward, authorize a general manager to move forward with a grant funding application. And I think we would stretch that item too far. Like I said, it's unfortunate. And this thing has such a short time span. I mean, this is a millisecond before, it expires. As far as the application being able to be made done, but.
So how about this? I move that we authorize the general manager to submit funding for this project and that TUD look at the entire reclamation picture.
That doesn't cover it. Basically, a supplemental water to the whole system. And that may be the 300 acre feet of water from Phoenix Lake that is now going down Sultan's Creek, needs to figure out how to transport into the system to, do it. It is a complicated policy, but, like I said, and, I agree, we have a contract on the table that, currently TUD is fulfilling that contract. We haven't delivered a drop of water and no time clocks started on it. And I haven't been on that contract in a while, but I don't believe there's an expiration date as to saying what date and time the first delivery of recycled water needs to be. This is a complicated matter where, you know, if we move forward with the grant application, I guarantee it's gonna be a whole lot harder to turn down 800,000 in the hand versus 800,000 in the bush.
Director Boatright, would you be interested in making an amendment to this motion? Because we do have a contract that would satisfy and help bring some results to your larger concerns.
I just don't see how that can be put into this motion.
Okay, then if there's no further discussion for this motion, let's see where it lies. Director Raymond.
So just for everybody's knowledge, today happens to be December 13th. And I believe she said that the grant has to be applied for by the end of December. We're out of time.
Yeah.
And it's very important that we go after that grant. And apparently we have a very good chance of obtaining it. So any delay on this is just not proper, period. Just not proper.
Like I said, I absolutely do not like the position I now find myself in. I'm in opposition to applying for a grant, knowing the speed that the project will be done and knowing the shortfall of the existing. I worked with those people for my entire career. Not a day went, you know, from day one to the last day I worked with them. They were there before I got there, and they are still there after. I agree that this, you know, looks there. President Balin, you yourself said you called the, you know, Water Resources Control Board to find out if it's required. They answered you in, you know, it is not required. An agreement and, you know, showing use and continuing to do that. Working without an NPDES permit on Quartz Reservoir, that means that everything that goes in there better go through the, you know, proper channels and pipelines to, you know, get to end users that can utilize it for irrigation. And I'm not gonna see this through to having them put under a shortfall. That the science has been questioned, the total water balance, the lack of able to balance the system by having a supplemental supply. Just where I'm at, but, and trust me, I'll find this a lot easier to shoot it down out of the bush than to shoot it down out of my hand.
So what I'm hearing you say, and I think this discussion is valuable, even though it is belabored, what you're saying is going forward with this pipeline has a very real.
No, what I'm saying is going forward with the grant application is not.
Will we?
Because the contract actually has very little to do with the motion that's here. And my background and track record and observation of TUD for, you know, 30 years, that, and like I said, the grant comes through, funding's there, the project's going to be fast-tracked and it's going. Regardless of having or how it tramples or the implications and not having the policies that cover our existing.
So why don't you want that in an amendment? Just what you said, it's great, these are great words. Shortfall, you know, not making people whole, looking at the policies. Why wouldn't you be opposed to saying, and this is board direction in amending this approval? wouldn't we then be directing staff to make the community whole?
I just don't feel that there's the guarantees of meeting the objective. Like I said, I asked for a supplemental water policy over a year ago.
But now we're gonna be, it's going to be going in an amendment. I mean, I don't want to do anything that you don't want to do. But I think we can achieve what your concerns are in where the public is our witness, which is very different than saying, hey, can you go look this up? And then we are obligated, because I agree, we have very valued customers here. And they have bent over backwards to take this water. And I have no anticipation of leaving them high and dry. Just the same as if the situation was reversed. I believe, my values are, we are all in this together and we are stronger together. And so maybe you're gonna have to undo some of the I and get a little more in the system, but by golly, this is the right thing to do, is to honor pre-existing arrangements and those relationships and that trust, and honor our new relationships in going forward. And if we can make an amendment, David, that satisfies and directs staff to make this happen, I think we would be ahead.
I do believe that we would be up for a legal challenge on, hey, I am open to seeing. It would be easier to see it than to just hear how we're gonna put that motion together. Like I said, the competitive motion to table it, timeline would then require a special board meeting. It would require staff to, basically double down and get some of the science-based information to, back this up. Show me how we keep everybody whole, and, to have a board policy. Because even if it was born out of committee, the board still would have had to fully approve or vet a, supplemental policy. But like I said, there's been no action on it. Other than a slight water balance, I think that Mr. Pitcher, tried to put together.
I don't think it gets much clearer regarding board direction to staff than a vote to do it. We can talk in committee, we can make, informal recommendations, but this is a vote to staff to do it.
Would it be, Melissa, would it be possible once said or written to actually see the written motion, a amended motion?
So
If we can write it and put it together,
all right.
I am open to it.
Okay, so let's craft a motion, and Director Regan, you're okay with amending this to include directing staff and the TUD staff I'm gonna need some help.
So you're saying and direct staff?
Yeah, and direct staff, okay, to look at supplemental capacity?
draft a supplemental water supply for the recycled water system.
Okay, to draft a supplemental water supply. I'm sorry,
I have direct staff to draft a supplemental water supply
Policy,
policy.
okay,
that keeps all current users fulfilled.
okay. Fulfilled, that's quite
I
clear.
mean, that allows for variability. I mean, going forward, extreme drought, and there's not a supplemental water supply available.
Okay,
Well,
so,
then everybody's hurting anyway.
so can we read what, now with the amended,
Okay,
okay,
I'm gonna read the entire thing.
please.
Okay. That the board of directors authorize the general manager to submit a funding application for the Tulalip Recycled Water Project through the State Water Sources Control Board Water Recycling Funding Program, and direct staff to draft a supplemental water supply policy that keeps all current users fulfilled. That would be the motion.
Now, is that
Is that acceptable to you?
As long as they can, stand on the gas and get that, application into the grant, before the deadline.
Okay, all right, so is there any further discussion? I think we have a good thing going here, so with that,
President,
pardon,
can I just ask if there's a brief description of what it means to keep all users whole?
Fulfilled.
What does that mean?
fulfilled? If we're under, let's see, our categories of water conservation are 1 through 4. And the policy should actually step directly along those, i.e. if we're in stage 1, which I believe is everything is open, as far as the water customers use and all that, the, contracts would be fulfilled on that, their land base versus number of acre feet needed to irrigate through a season. If we're at category 4, we're gonna have to do some math, because I don't know exactly what a water customer under category 4 conservation would be required to reduce their usage to. But the policy has obviously got to follow right along with our current conservation. I am not trying to, stumble block this thing,
Just for clarity though, I want to make sure, we, the district by state mandate has water shortage contingency plans that the state says you must implement a water shortage contingency plan based on rainfall, right? Lack of. So what you're saying is if we're going to mandate a stage 2 to our treated water customers, we'll do a stage 2 to our reclamation users.
correct, and to follow along the same lines. I mean, there may be times when Quartz has a little bit more water than, what stage 2, and that's just an anomaly. But if we're going to stage 4, what I'm thinking is that percentage of supplemental water, at stage 4, it may be 0%. And it may be based on exactly what the collection system's putting out and what's available in Quartz Reservoir. There it is, use it, when it's gone, it's gone. But at stage 1, all of the contracts as a whole would be added together with a balance of water in Quartz Reservoir, adjusted against what is available in the upper zone, and the math is done. It puts another project out there, because obviously supplemental water supply to this system to keep it whole, you may not be able to run it through the regional plant. Or, it may have to come from a well source, or, some other point where we can bypass coming through treatment. It requires the legwork, knowledge, and, continued vigilance on the reclamation system. Because, if you start at 100 gallons a minute in January, by the time you get to April 15th, you've already got a substantial amount of water where it needs to be, so you're not trying to overtax or overdrive. That's operations, and it goes back to the limitations of the system. That's the guy down there on the end of the table. And that's his ballgame now, to figure out logistics, but policy from where the board is at. And, like I said, I'm not trying to tie anybody's hands up, and I'm not saying I don't like this project. I'm definitely not saying that, hey, I don't want to go after, I don't like calling it that acronym, but grant funds are great, we can have help supporting our system.
Do you have some clarity?
100% behind
A little bit
it.
of clarity, okay, and I do believe then we will be very busy doing this at the beginning of the new year. So thank you for your words. And with that, if there's no further discussion, then should we do a roll call, or we'll just go ahead and say, all those in favor of the.
So he's our first, so we need a second on his amended motion.
Oh, okay, I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously.
Okay.
Where we got. And thank you, everybody, for your thoughtful input, and I think it was important discussion. And I'd like to thank the tribe for participating and being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Would we like to take a break?
Okay, all right, so before we go into item 7, let's take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you. back from our break. Again, I want to commend the board for the hard work that we did on item 6. And that brings us to item 7. And Melissa, will you please?
President,
Yeah.
if I may, before we move on to item 7, I would like to apologize, if you will. And I don't want to personally offend anybody. That is never a goal of mine. And I guarantee, walking away from this and we put item 6 to bed now and, it's behind us. And I really like and appreciate you all, and I appreciate your dedicated hard work and realize that you have as much vested here as I do, and I don't want to come off as part of what I present myself as.
Thank you for all the kind words. I don't think you owe us an apology, speaking to me personally. This is business, and sometimes it gets frustrating, right? And so it's expected. I get it. You and I have a great working relationship. Sometimes it's like that, but I like the kind words and right back at you. Appreciate all that you've done, past, present. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And I don't think we stopped till we got a thoughtful product out of it. So and of course Jeff's back. So we should probably move to the next item. I appreciate your words, Director Boatwright, really from the heart. Okay, Melissa, please read item 7.
Okay, election of officers of the board of directors, A, president, B, vice president.
All right.
Well, President Bailey, I can't
Yes.
believe it. It's been a year's up. This last 12 months have gone by so fast. I feel like it's only been 3 months. But nevertheless, here we are. It's this item. It's the annual time for you guys to elect board members, new officers, and so send it over to you. Thank you, Barbara. But I gotta say, for my year and a half, you've been the president, and I've said in many situations or meetings that having been the new general manager, I've had to lean on you many, many times throughout this last year, and I appreciate your help and your assistance.
I'm cheaper than Jesse.
Yeah, that's super Jesse.
No, it's been a pleasure. 2 years has been great. And so with that, I would actually like to make a motion to, I make a motion to nominate Jeff Kearns as president and Ron Ringen as vice president for this new year.
Madam President, for the moment, I would like to second that motion.
Thank you. All right. Is there any further discussion? Something's wrong. There's no further discussion. Okay. All right. Then with that, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Staff reports.
It's been a month. I'll go fast. On the 17th of November, Eric Hall and I were supposed to go to Grizzly Flats to tour their system after wildfire got cancelled due to illness. On the 18th, some of us met with the Tuolumne County Water Agency. It was kind of a meet and greet, and more information coming later on that. Also on the 18th, I had a check-in call with Mike Schoner of PG&E. It's my routine. Every 4, 5, 6 weeks, I give him a call and see how things are going. We had a nice conversation, and he invited himself up here to have a conversation with him, which we did. On 12/1, some of us met with the city of Sonora, Melissa Eads, city administrator there. She's really eager to kind of work with TUD on combined projects for grant funds and opportunities to work together on some mutual needs. On the 5th, we're continuing to meet with the Jamestown Sanitary District to work on their upgrades to their treatment plant to get them to be fully tertiary, to be compliant with water, so we have the same sort of water in the courts eventually. On 12/8, we met with the TIDA, the Tuolumne band. Most of them were here talking about the sites lately. there's a handful of other projects that work on closer to the reservation for their planning horizon. So good conversations and good work being done there. On the 9th, we actually met with Mike Schoenherr and Rebecca Deutsch, all the managers, Director Balin, Director Turner. It was a great conversation. I want to be brief, but just the takeaway for me was things are positive, things are not dead in the water, they're just on hold. He gave some great insight on the Pacific generation and what that means to him and what it means to PGM. It's really, really insightful. Maybe someday we can share that information. And then yesterday was Director Boatwright and I met at our first Tuolumne County chapter of California Special Districts meeting. So we officially, it took 2 hours and 15 minutes, but we officially adopted our ordinance and what was the other thing? 2 things. And the bylaws, yes. It was the bylaws, yes, and 2 other things. So no dues and meeting quarterly, the second Monday of the month, all those quarters at 2 p.m. and Zoom is available. That's not required.
Oh, next, that's okay, thank you. Good morning. So I am happy to report that the state Water Resources Control Board Office of Water Program certification exams are getting back up to speed from the last couple of years with COVID and some delays in there and with the testing and things. So we had 3 of our staff that have passed their certification exams since the last time we talked about it. And those are Lucas Castle, who passed his D4 exam, also Angel Tarango passed her D4 exam, and then one of our newest employees, Jack Morey, passed his D1 exam, and he did that all within the first 6 months. So that's, he was very motivated, so we're really proud of Jack for doing that. And then lastly, November 15th through the 18th, I had the opportunity to go to the CalPELRA conference, which is California Public Employer Labor Relations Association. And so that's an annual conference, hadn't been in a couple of years, so was really happy to be there in person, learning about all things labor relations, human resources, performance management, the leave laws, all the new laws that are coming into play in 2023, as there are every year in employment law, and just had a really fantastic keynote speaker, Felipe Gomez, who incorporated, he's a concert pianist, so he incorporated that into his keynote, and it was absolutely inspiring and wonderful. So I was happy to go to that, and that ends my report.
I don't have a whole lot to report. We covered some ground here today, but I will say, we continue to work aggressively on the capital program. We did, I think we may have mentioned this, but I'll mention it again. We did hire a new inspector to replace Les Dean. Big shoes to fill, but he's a fantastic individual, great temperament, learning very quickly. His name's Kevin Johnson, unrelated, but he's now going to be representing the district out there in the contracting community, and at the same time we're going through an overhaul of our standard details. So that's quite an undertaking. We're making progress.
Yeah, for me, it's end of year, so lots of stuff with that. We got coming up, W-2s, 1099s, all of that. We continue to watch on a monthly, if not weekly basis, the expenditures compared to budget. We're still seeing increases in chemical costs, some supplies and inventory costs, fuel, electricity, all of those are still running high. The other ones, so we're keeping a close eye on that. I was able to attend, it's an annual event, the GFOA, Government Finance Officers America, have an annual event with all the new laws, requirements. It's kind of geeky accountants type thing as far as that, but there are a lot of revisions coming over the next couple of years, so the audit financial statements may change. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, I didn't previously, but we've really benefited prior to Emily accepting her new role. The 2 of us got together, and it was really her recommendation that we take a look at some of the severely delinquent accounts that we have. That a lot of that was a result of COVID, but a lot of it was before COVID. And over the years, we've utilized the tax roll through the county and not utilized it. So Emily and I worked together, and I think we added about 20 some odd accounts to the tax roll that haven't been on the tax roll for a number of years. And it directly, almost immediately resulted in the collection of tens of thousands of past due accounts. And I give a lot of credit to Emily for her doing that. And then with the property taxes coming due, I believe they were due yesterday. We've got phone calls, we've made payment arrangements, we've heard from some people that we haven't heard in years. So just another contribution that Emily made over the years and continues to make with that. We talked earlier about the hydrocord and the backflow devices. That's still an ongoing work in progress, but April's done great. We're back to full staffing now, back in customer service. So far so good. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm not gonna repeat everything that Don said. On December 7th, did the monthly Tuolumne County OES operational meeting. They gave an update where the district is water supply, and snowpack and things like that. That same day too, went to the Natural Resources Committee. Same update, but then we didn't let them know that we've started the Shady Fuel Break. It's a grant application that we received up in Cedar Ridge, Crystal Falls, at that water treatment plant and some private property around it. So it's real good for the community and the district stuff there. And then we also started at the OK containment up in Cedar Ridge.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so we'll bring it back to the directors. Who would like to go first for sharing?
I can go ahead and shoot first. Hey, not much. Don and I were at the Tuolumne County Special Districts CSA inaugural meeting. And they did adopt their bylaws. That was the main section that I was there for, or able to be there for. And it's going to be really interesting going forward. It will lend a little extra clout, a little extra letter, and TUD may be submitting its own, letter request, proposal, state, federal. But with the new association, we can also have them, it's them that put the clout of all the special districts within Tuolumne County to, back that up. Moving forward, it may look good on grant applications, for public benefit and things like that.
Those collective logos are really, really important when we're talking with Sacramento. Yeah.
And that's all I got, other than split bit of time.
Great. Did you take ethics? Did you have to take ethics?
Did
you take ethics?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay, just checking if you want to report on that. Okay. Great. Thank you, David. Thanks for attending that, the CSGA thing. Yeah, it's good. Who would like to go next?
As our board appointed representative for the Aqua JPIA, and you're talking about increased expenses. Unfortunately, that's going to include insurance as well. A year ago when I went to this same meeting, this is one example. Our cybersecurity portion of our insurance. For the JPI as a whole, all of its members, TUD and all the other districts and whatnot that are part of it, it went up last year from $200,000 a year to $900,000 a year. This year, it's going up from $900,000 a year to, they're still not sure where it's going to come in, but they're suspecting it's going to come in around 1.5 million. So that's the biggest bite. Some of the others are rising too, but that's the one that is near and dear to my heart, being in the business I've been in for the last 30 years and talking to Corey about it just this morning with email scams and whatnot. And that is such an important battle that we fight every day, no matter what business we're in, what company we're with, or is that cybersecurity. We're under threat 24/7, and unfortunately that protection is going to get more and more expensive. The other item at Aqua that got my attention was we had two members of the California State Water Board there, Diamato and Paul another Italian. Anyway, they were there. They gave the water board's position on a lot of different things, but the one thing that caught my ear was that they seemed to be a little more interested in storage opportunities. Now, what that will entail, we'll have to wait and see. But for them to even speak about it, I thought was very interesting. And we'll see what happens. I don't know, don't get me wrong, I don't think we're gonna start building dams anytime soon. But at least they're starting to discuss other options. And I just thought that was very interesting. Tough to see if that goes in the future. Other than that, good.
Thank you for going through that. I really appreciate it. I know that was quite a ways away, but of course, you learn a lot. Even if they put nothing on the agenda, it's gonna be good, so.
Yeah, there's always good things on the agenda, and then just the networking too.
Yeah. Thank you for being there.
Thanks for allowing me to go, appreciate it.
Thank you. Director Ring.
Okay, on 12/7, I also attended the Tuolumne County Natural Resource Committee meeting with Eric Hall being there, did a good job. And I was directly questioned as to what the T-stand Irwin, what was going on. And being the chairman of the JPA for the T-stand, of course I know what's going on because I go to every one of those meetings, as well as the Water Advisory Committee. And so I was able to answer it, and I think that they were impressed that we brought in over $30 million in grant claims. So that was good. And then on 12/9, attended the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association Governance Committee meeting, which I've been on that for a number of years. And what was interesting about it is that there's apparently 5 openings on the Mountain Counties board. And we had 6 applicants, and that was the governance committee's job, is to review their resumes if they had sent in, and then provide a recommendation to the board, which will come up at their next board meeting. So it worked out great, I thought. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, I too attended that as Secretary of Mountain Counties, and we put forward the folks that are running. There was a really good effort at recruiting a good spate of individuals that really represented, Nevada irrigation down to Amador and Tahoe and Yuba. And so we got a really good group of candidates, so that's really great. And those were all elected. So as Ron said, that the governance committee will vetted the qualifications and then approved some recommendations. So that happened. Previously, I met with Mountain County's executive board, and we approved our strategic plan. It's just really short and sweet, and I want to make sure that we get copies so that we can take a look at that. I'm hopeful as one board member that the board actually have a strategic planning session for the board, and that. So this would be good to have if we go forward with that. Okay, I did my ethics training, and that was interesting. I learned some things. It was quite long. I mean, to me, took every bit of the 2 hours. I did not cheat or fast forward to those tests, and so I got that out of the way. And then I just want to say on December 9th, like Dawn said, now President Kearns and myself met with some members of, and of course a couple of staff, met with Mike Schoner, and that was a very, very good meeting. We were able to reaffirm our commitment to one another. I mean, I think that's safe to say. We demonstrated a continued commitment and it was a positive meeting. And I think we came away with that sense of renewed commitment. And I think that that's all we can say right now. You know, they're going through major restructuring, major stuff. So we, you know, we see sort of how we fit into that, their larger issues. So I just want to say that was a good relationship building commitment renewal. So with that, I have no other further business. Is there any other comments for the good of the order? Seeing none, then I will conclude our meeting at 5 minutes to noon. Thank you, everyone.
Time to go down.